So hi guys, mayong adlaw. Welcome to NatzMath TV. So in this video, I will be teaching you on how to factor out difference of two squares. This is a lesson for grade 8 students. When we say difference of two squares, it is in the form a squared minus b squared, where our first term is a perfect square and the second term is also a perfect square. So if we are going to factor out, or if we are going to expand this binomial, we can write a minus b times a plus b, where a is the square root of a squared and b is the square root of b squared. And we affix the sign minus plus, or we can interchange plus and minus. Using another variable, so we can have m squared minus n squared. Again, the first term is a perfect square and the second term is also a perfect square. So we can write, or we can expand this binomial. We have m minus n times m plus n. Again, our m is the square root of m squared and our n is the square root of n squared. So in this topic, we should be very familiar of the different numbers which are considered as a perfect square numbers. So I have here some examples of a perfect square numbers. Okay, so let's proceed now to our example. So how do we factor out difference of two squares? We have here some examples. X squared minus 9. Again, x squared is a perfect square and 9 is a perfect square. So it would be easy for us to factor out this binomial. So we can just simply write the two binomials here to indicate the two binomials. We have two parentheses. So we have the square root of x squared is x, so we write x and x. And we have the square root of 9, so this, you have to take note that the square of a binomial, the operation should always be minus. So this is minus, so affix the double sign plus and minus, so we can have plus and minus here. And the square root of 9 is 3, so we write 3 and 3. So the factors of x squared minus 9 are x plus 3 times x minus 3. Or we can interchange, we can have x minus 3 times x plus 3. If we want to check if these factors are correct, we just simply use the FOIL method or the distributive property. So we have here x times x times negative 3, 3 times x, and 3 times negative 3. Combine like terms, then we will have this binomial x squared minus 9. Another example, we have m squared minus 100. Still, the first term is a perfect square and the second term is also a perfect square. So the factors are, we have these binomials. So the square root of m squared should always be m. And we have here another m. Then we have plus and minus, or minus plus. The square root of 100 is 10, so we write 10 and 10. So these are now our factors of the binomial m squared minus 100. Another example, we have 25 minus 4a squared. Again, we need to remember that our operations here are always minus. The operation that separates the first term and the second term is always minus. So 25 minus 4a squared. Again, 25 is a perfect square and 4a squared is also a perfect square. So when we factor this out, we can have these binomials. The square root of 25 is 5. We have here another 5. Then affix plus and minus. Then the square root of 4a squared. So the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of a squared is a. So the square root of 4a squared shall be 2a. So we write here 2a. So the factors of this binomial 25 minus 4a squared are 5 plus 2a times 5 minus 2a. So these are now the factors. Next example, 4a squared minus 16. So similar here, we have 4a squared. So we have these binomials. The square root of 4a squared shall be 2a. Of course, we have here 2a. We copy we write minus plus or plus minus. Then the square root of 16 is 4, so we write 4 and 4. So these are the factors of this binomial. So another example, 49x squared minus 4y squared. Again, 49 is a perfect square and 4 is also a perfect square. So when we factor this out, we just simply get the square root of both terms. So the square root of 49x squared shall be 7x. So we write here 7x. Then always write, indicate minus plus or plus minus. Then the square root of 4y squared. And so the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of y squared is y. So the square root of 4y squared shall be 2y. So we write 2y and 2y. So these are now the factors. So next example, 121x squared minus 4. So 121 is a perfect square. So we write binomials here. The square root of 121 is 11 and the square root of x squared is x. So the square root of 121x squared shall be 11x. So we write here 11x times 11x. Then plus minus, or you can say minus plus. The square root of 4 is 2, so we write 2 and 2. These are now the factors. Next example, we have 16b squared minus 1. So still, we have the square root of 16b squared shall be 4b. So we write 4b, another 4b. Then minus plus or plus minus. The square root of 1 is 1. So we write 1 and 1. So the factors of this binomial shall be 4b minus 1 times 4b plus 1. Next example, 64a squared minus 25b squared. So the same. We have these binomials. The square root of 64a squared shall be 8a. So we write 8a times 8a. 8a times 8a shall give us 64a squared. So minus plus or plus minus. The square root of 25b squared shall be 5b times 5b. So if we want to check if these factors are correct, we just simply use the FOIL method. Then we combine like terms, then we will get the binomials. Now let's proceed to a more challenging example. So we have these two examples here. So 16y raised to 4 minus 81. So again, 16 is a perfect square and y raised to 4 is also a perfect square. Then 81 is also a perfect square. So we can factor this out by writing these binomials. The square root of 16y raised to 4 shall be 4y squared. 4y squared, so we write 4y squared. When we multiply 4y squared times 4y squared, this will give us 16y raised to 4. Minus, so we have here minus. We affix the sign plus and minus. Then the square root of 81 is 9. So we write 9 times 9. Now, is this now the final answer? The answer is no. Why? Because we still have here a factor which is still considered as a difference of two squares. Because we have here 4y squared, which is a perfect square, and 9 is also a perfect square, and we have the minus. So these binomials here are still considered a difference of two squares. There's no problem with the first binomial, so we just simply copy 4y squared plus 9. So we cannot factor this out anymore. Then we have here 4y squared minus 9, so we have these binomials. The square root of 4y squared shall be 2y. Then we write here 2y. 2y times 2y will give us 4y squared. So this minus, we can write plus and minus. Then the square root of 9 is 3. So we write 3 and 3. So therefore, the factors of this binomial 16y raised to 4 minus 81 are 4y squared plus 9 times 2y plus 3 times 2y minus 3. Another example. So we write x raised to 4 minus y raised to 4. The same concept here. We have x raised to 4 minus y raised to 4. So we factor out the square root of x raised to 4 shall be x squared times x squared. Then that is minus, we write plus, or we can write plus and minus. The square root of y raised to 4 shall be y squared, and we also have y squared. So there is no problem with these binomials here because this is not factorable anymore. So we have x squared minus y squared, which is still considered a difference of 2 squared. So we can factor this out, x squared minus y squared, so we can have these two binomials. So we copy these binomials because we cannot factor this out anymore. So we can write x squared plus y squared. So we factor out the square root of x squared is x. Then we have plus and minus. The square root of y squared is y. So we have x plus y times x minus y times x squared plus y squared. So these are now the factors of this binomial x raised to 4 minus y raised to 4. Okay, so that's it. I hope you have learned something from this video. I still have some other videos here, so you can click these videos related to this topic about factoring. Please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share to your friends, especially those who are grade 8 students, grade 10, and most especially those who are grade 11 students for general mathematics. So I have plenty of videos here. You can just scan my channel. So for now, thank you and God bless.